intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Every day, I get asked, hey Rev, can you make Scopely do more PvP events? Especially 2-day long ones back to back? Can you make it happen? Well, bad news, everybody. No, I've not been getting that. So if you are one of those people, I'm sorry. A little bit. But we have had a lot of PvP this month. The Arc Runner of this month particularly likes PvP and Armadas, apparently. So today we're going to talk about PvP crews. Haven't done one of these videos in a while. And honestly, it's not because we haven't needed to. It's just because there's been so much going on. Today we're going to take a look at some bad crews, why they don't work, and what you can do to change if you've used some of these crews this particular month. And not every crew is a bad crew. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you come up with a crew based on your thinking, well, maybe this will work. And maybe it does or doesn't, but you could have been more effective in what you tried to deploy. So Unified Unimatrix SLBs aside, which you could just dominated by putting Leslie on a ship and getting a buddy and y'all back to back, spam points. Oh, you cheeky little devils, you. But we'll worry about exploits later. Technically, it's not an exploit because you're not like breaking anything in the game. But anyway, let's talk about these various crews. We're going to start with this one here. And this is an Enterprise going against a Sally. And oh my gosh, the Sally wins? Well, of course it does. It's running Interceptor Strike Team. But also you look on the opposite side, we've got Strike Team officers. So you would think, well, I mean, maybe we're doing a little bit here that's correct. And sadly, not the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to look side by side at what these officers do and why this works and or doesn't work. And in this case, doesn't work. Now, Khan, I think most of us are well aware of how Khan works. So we're going to go ahead and just transfer this on over. Khan, ruthless mastermind, when attacking a station, has a 50% chance of drastically reducing the mitigation of all opponents' ship and defense platforms for dose rounds, which is a perfectly legitimate base attacking crew. So that's completely fine as captain, no problems there. The question really comes in, is it okay for Ikatika and Pon to be there? So let's scroll on down here. So let's look at Ikatika. Created to win, increases weapons damage by 55%. Granted, this is tier based. Win on an explorer that has morale. Do you see the problem so far? Khan does not create morale. He does not proc morale. So essentially, Ikatika is useless, completely useless. And you can see where they're going here. And what I run into all the time are players who are in this game and legitimately do try to put together good crews. And I think that if you're reading this just based on the description, you're like, okay, this makes sense. It's just not understanding how the morale actually works. And then Pon, Breen, Serve Cold. Pon decreases opponent's critical chance by 57% for 3 rounds if on an explorer with morale. No morale. So neither of these officers are effective, yet this is really close to being a good loadout. Like just having Kirk, TOS Kirk, Wayun, any of those would have been a far superior option to our good friend Khan here, simply based on how officer abilities work and procs. You can see the thought process there, even though it wasn't effective. Now, this one's a little bit tougher to see the thought process. Just a smidge tougher. Anybody else seen this one before? I haven't. Now, we just talked about Ikatika, but we've also got Nero here and Talon. Now, again, this might be another one of just simply not understanding when things work or who they work against. So let me go back to Ikatika real quick, just so we can look at the captain's ability. Honored Elder increases all mitigation stats by 20% for 1 round. Again, on an explorer, which technically we are on an explorer. So that captain's ability is, in fact, working. Now, here's the problem. Nero and Talon doesn't do jack diddly kumquat for you. Now, I always have trouble refining Talon, but luckily I got it right here. Objective defense, if the opponent is a hostile. I think the tricky thing is here is players getting confused with the word hostile. Like, hey, a bad player I'm fighting is obviously a hostile. Not in this case, no. A hostile only refers to a red. So an NPC, non-player combatant, non-player character, would still be a combatant. Nice little mess up there, Rep. But NPCs that are red, so your normal hostile grinding does not work against players. And then Nero is a very curious choice here. There are times when Nero by himself is actually a completely legitimate option. 40% chance to cause burning when hitting an enemy. There's nothing wrong with that. Burning does, in the background, do a 1% hull reduction, but there's a reason that this Mantis is punching up so high just running the Battleship Strike Team, because Nero's not really doing anything. He's giving you that 1% background burn. That's it. Nobody else is using his ability, and the pride of the fleet, I guess, here for your ISS Jelly is it doesn't really do anything either. Like, it doesn't really need what you got doing right now. It doesn't get a benefit from burning. So let's move on to another one, and this is another interesting one. And I like when they're interesting because we're seeing how players think and what they're trying to build out of what they have. And I love seeing the thought process. Sometimes we just need some slight tweakings. So the idea here, at least I can see, we're going to bring up our Strange New World Una here. That's our one extremely hard to source officer. So shout out to them for having sourced her. But Strange New World Una, transfer on over. Captain's ability, modified weaponry when fighting hostiles. Again, hostiles, not players. Hostiles increases base weapons damage by 100%. This is without synergy. You actually have Strange New World Pike here, so this is actually better versus, or that is a higher percentage. And then engine redlining is an impulse speed boost. Now, we see impulse speed boost all the time. And as we can look here, we're on a battleship. Battleships are notoriously slow. And if you've played this game, you've noticed that battleships can tend to lag a little bit. They're slower than their counterparts. So you get where you're kind of going with this, and then you mix that with Strange New World Pike, quick thinking, when fighting hostiles. So my thoughts here is this particular player is trying to do something a little bit different and go for a hostile fighting build, and a very unique one at that. I just don't think it's necessarily a very good build. And then you've got this third, very questionable character of Lorca. Now, there's nothing wrong with Lorca. Lorca is giving you hull breach. But do we need hull breach? No. Why? We use hull breach with critical builds. Hull breach gives you a 1.5 magnifier on top of a critical hit if you have hull breach. Well, we're not running a critical hit here. We're just running a hostile crew in a PvP situation. And even if they were doing hostile hunting, maybe they were trying to do this going after the recent event that we had that was based on hitting, criticals and doing damage versus certain hostile types. Even then, you probably wouldn't be using an auger, and definitely not this crew. So again, bad crew, but we see the thought process of where these players are probably trying to go. And let's look at one last one here. Now we've got another one that is, again, we're seeing kind of a theme in today's episode, and I wanted to do that intentionally. This one is one of the ones that's the closest to being good. Now, I do want to point directly above my head to the Centurion. Remember when I said that Ikatika and Pond just needed a little bit help? There you go. There's Kirk. Somebody to give you morale, even if you don't have the epics, because the epic officers are the hardest to source. If you don't have the strike team epics, which don't worry, a lot of people don't, then how do you find a way to still use those officers? Well, find something like this that uses morale. So that ends up being a really good choice here by having Kirk on the Centurion. And this Gladius goes boom. Well, let's explain why. Now, I do like the idea here. It's a very similar idea to what we just saw. And thankfully, I've got Burnham right here and ready. So we're going to go with Steadfast. Increases impulse by 15. This is without synergy. We do have stamina, so that means we have synergy. So it's actually better than 15. I do appreciate impulse builds. It's good to try to go for that speed to make your ship faster, especially on a Gladius. You're zooming around, OPC hunting, or just trying maybe fighting territory and having a tactical advantage with speed. Makes sense. However, if you're going to run stuff like this, you got to have some other things working with it. When fighting players, this works well. Hey, this technically counts. Weapon attack hits the players, removes 55% of the total attack of all officers on your ship from the opponent's shield health. This is an effective PvP ability. Now, Burnham is not my first choice in PvP, but she does work here. But the problem is we've then paired her with Stamets, which is only an 80% reduction to the opponent's armor piercing when defending from a player. Very weird, I would call it weird choice to run with her, even though you're getting synergy. There's a lot of other officers that you can run in that set. See, look at all these various officers that we have that we could keep on. See, look, you got Giorgio. Anything that says Discovery crew on it. Terran Empire, we can't, sadly, because we do love Killy here. But you could have, even in theory, have run Burnham, George Joe, which would have given you burning, and then maybe DJ Aoki on the side for increased mitigation, or Ash Tyler for a damage increase. But even Saru technically would have been a better choice than running Stamets here. If you're just going for synergy speed, at least you get a small reduction in opponent's weapons damage. But the Paul Stamets just doesn't really give you what you're looking for here. But if you had run, say, Ash Tyler, Giorgio, Burnham, you would have gotten a huge speed boost, plus gotten a increase to your actual damage that's cumulative based on attack. So different options you could have gone there. You see where the plan was. And then, of course, one of my favorite officers in the game, Honor Guard Worf. And it's completely acceptable here. Rage of Kittimer. First 8 rounds of combat, increasing your critical hit chance on the ship by, well, mine's level 2, so 50%. So again, very logical foundation to where they were going with this. Just doesn't quite work out based on slight changes being needed. And we talk about crews all the time in my Discord. So if you're watching this video, then join the Discord. Link is in the description of this video, and I would strongly encourage you to check it out if you have not already. We are always on there talking crews, and it's not just me, by the way. Rev talks a lot, but it's not just Rev. There are other people on that who are just so, to be honest, intelligent. Like, some people understand crews so well in this game, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Also, upgrade in the description, just in case you want to check it out. We have a new merch store, and this merch store has several new items in it. For example, look, some people don't like this. I put this design together, and I love it. No loot, no shoot. And that simply means if you don't have loot, I'm not going to come after you. But as a pirate, if you do have loot, no, I'm coming after you. See what I did there? It's basically a dad joke on a t-shirt, which is why I love it, and probably why some people don't. Link to stuff like this in the description below. This helps support the channel, and it helps repair the foundation, which is currently broken in my house because, yay, home ownership. Appreciate every single one of y'all. Y'all are all amazing. Live long and prosper. Stay safe with the Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Catch you on the next one. We're outie.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.